I want to speak to you about a new organization called the Eco-Modernist Society of North America. I'm here because we are in the midst of a potentially monumental ecological crisis. It is only through a new environmentalism 2.0 that progress can be made. We believe that our only hope for human advancement and even human survival is through the exponential advance of science in the service of humanity. We stand firmly against the war on science that is predicated on the appeal to nature fallacy, which is the belief that whatever is natural must be good and whatever is unnatural must be bad. This belief has become an impediment to advances in areas such as human health, social progress, and even environmental progress. In the field of medicine, the appeal to nature fallacy has already led to catastrophic outcomes. Resistance to vaccines threatens public health and the lives of children. The unwarranted resistance to GMOs has not only held back the fight against climate change, but it has also hampered our ability to feed the developing world as well. Campaigns against GMOs have also held back efforts to ward off the deadly Aedes aegypti mosquito, which has killed countless millions as a carrier of disease and plagues. The scientific consensus concerning the safety of GMOs is solidly supported in every major scientific organization across the planet. The only thing green about being anti-GMO is the extra cash that is made by overcharging for expensive boutique food. But that won't cut it when it comes to raising crops with accelerating heat stress, droughts, floods, disease, and insect infestations brought on by a hotter planet. It makes no sense to accept the call of the IPCC for decarbonization within the next 12 years and yet reject their conclusion that these goals are impossible without nuclear power, which has proven itself to be the cleanest, safest, and most reliable way of achieving decarbonization. It is the most reliable way to decarbonize simply because the alternatives of weather-dependent power sources are inherently unreliable. And nuclear is the cleanest energy source because it is the only form of energy production that completely encases its waste stream. Super safe, advanced Generation 4 reactors, which will almost completely convert existing nuclear waste to centuries worth of energy, are coming very close to commercialization. In fact, it goes completely against most everything we're led to believe, but nuclear is legitimately the safest form of energy generation according to all the accepted worldwide energy fatality data. But there is one thing that nuclear is not safe for, and that is the fossil fuel industry. The fact of the matter is that the fossil fuel industry has a long history of funding the anti-nuclear movement, along with climate change deniers, to protect their bottom line. Solid science is in dire need of a champion. And that is what eco-modernism is all about. Eco-modernism is a new environmental paradigm which looks to reverse the fear of nuclear power and scientific progress in general. Ecology-based modernism is the most direct way to define it. Eco-modernism as a philosophy is described in the Eco-Modernist Manifesto. We believe humanity should not be rejecting technological progress, but rather separate our impacts from nature through the responsible use of technology and urbanization. Urbanization is an unstoppable worldwide trend and the best solution to many environmental problems. It offers sustainable development for the human population and is a historic antidote to both deforestation and species extinction as humans move away from using wildlife as their protein source. Vertical, urban, high-rise architecture minimizes the use of land, resources, and energy, enabling walkable cities that facilitates the more efficient use of mass public transit as well. It must be emphasized that our support for technological solutions is definitely not about defending industrial polluters, nor do we accept funding from corporations or industry. Nor does our defense of technology imply that we just need to sit back and let things take care of themselves. To the contrary, we believe that humanity is at a crossroads that severely threatens our future on this planet. We reject the idea of resource limits on many levels. The advance of science has a long history of getting around problems of resource scarcity and will continue to do so. Another reason is that Earth is just one of a multitude of worlds available to explore in our solar system and beyond. Comets and asteroids are untapped reservoirs for raw materials. If we could find a way to thrive in artificial ecosystems off-world, we could use what we learn to help sustain terrestrial ecosystems here on Earth. I hope by now you understand the worthiness of our cause. Ecomodernism is really only a philosophy at this time. I want to talk to you about the necessity of turning it into a movement, which will be part of the larger environmentalist movement. For it is only through our presence and participation that there can be any hope of moving environmentalism in the right direction. Our aim is not to divide the environmental movement, but rather to multiply its numbers with the incorporation of many scientific and educational communities that is working to both build chapters of eco-modernist societies and support our growth worldwide. We aspire to increase our numbers by bringing together the numerous supporters of climate action that have been alienated by mainstream environmentalism's wildly contradictory support for the shutting down of nuclear power plants in the midst of a climate emergency, and welcome them into our ranks. Thank you.
Please subscribe to us on YouTube, EcoModern channel. Also to subscribe to us on Twitter and Facebook, EcoModern Society of North America.
On another planet That's the word they say. Freedom is in heaven. That's where it stays.
Hello and welcome to the program. This is the Eco-Modernist Channel Live. I'm Carl Pauls. I'm here with Gabe Ignetti and our special guest. Thomas E. Rehm, PhD, is a distinguished chemical engineer. He's made significant contributions to the field of climate solutions and process safety. He currently serves as the president of GSOP Climate Collaboration Incorporated. Additionally, he has co-founded Global Solutions and Outreach Programs in 2022. His leadership extends to his position as past chair of the South Texas section of the American Institute of Chemical Engineers. Dr. Rehm's career is marked by his dedication to climate solutions. Since 2020, he has been a climate solutions liaison for the Engineering, Science, and Technology Council of Houston. His most notable achievement has been his work on global warming initiatives since 2017. Welcome to the program, Tom.
Thank you, Carl. So I appreciate you giving me time today, and I'll do my best to explain our proposal. Should I just dive into it, Gabe, or did you want to start this thing off?
I think
Or
the
Carl?
first question pretty much goes into that. So you've got something like a proposal for an international army of engineers, economists, and experts from all countries to mobilize and develop specific action plans. So why don't we get into it?
Okay. Well, our proposal is simple, really. And there's a saying of Albert Einstein. He said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. Our proposal is simple, and if I contrast it with the IPCC, I can explain it simply in terms that everyone will understand. Humanity is making little or no progress in resolving global warming. Why is that happening? Well, it's happening because humanity has no plan to resolve global warming. There's a lot of activity, but there's no plan. Most of your audience may know Dr. James Hansen. He's out at Columbia University. On December 9th, he said in a statement to the International Court of Justice, he said, nations of the world meet at annual COP meetings, which is conferences of the parties, where they promise to reduce emissions to net zero at some distant date, which is almost a meaningless pledge. There is no plan to actually stabilize climate. Real-world emissions remain at a level driving climate inexorably toward conditions out of humanity's control. That's our position. We agree with Dr. Hansen. There is no plan to actually stabilize climate. Our proposal is big, but it's also simple. So I'll start by contrasting our proposal with the work of the IPCC. The IPCC has 3 working groups. Working Group 1 examines the physical science of climate change. Working Group 2 assesses the vulnerability of socioeconomic and natural systems to climate change. Those are the consequences of global warming. Working Group 3 focuses on climate change mitigation, assessing methods for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and removing greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. The IPCC provides a lot of information to members of the United Nations and their representatives who attend the annual COP meetings, the Conference of Parties. Parties are the members of the United Nations. It's at the annual COP meetings where countries, quote unquote, collaborate in person and hopefully make decisions which will resolve global warming. In the GSOP initiative, we do not think that international collaboration has been very effective, which is one reason we started taking a collaboration survey in March of last year. And sometime during this podcast, I'll talk about part one of a paper just published. But in that paper, we put the results of the survey. Granted, only 135 took the survey. We're not professionals on taking surveys, but we asked them what they thought about current collaboration. Only 15% think that collaboration is on a good track. 70% think that collaboration is poor, and the other 15% think collaboration is abysmal. We don't say that the thousands of contributors who produce the work of the three IPCC working groups is poor. And we don't say that the tens of thousands who attend the annual COP meetings are not doing the best they can. What we say is we think that those working in the IPCC and those who attend COP meetings, they're well-intentioned, they're doing the best they can, but the progress is poor. And I quoted Dr. James Hansen, he would agree with that. And an important bit that he said is, there is no plan to actually stabilize climate. Okay, what is humanity doing now? Humanity is hoping that business as usual will resolve global warming. Well, if we could depend on business as usual without any planning, we would need two key groups of people to receive the best advice possible on climate solutions. Who are those groups of people? One group are those that authorize very large capital investments. Got to have capital for a lot of these solutions, large amounts of it. The other group are those who propose and pass government policies to support climate solutions. So those groups are expert in finance and in policy. They don't have the technical experience to understand the challenges, the technical challenges of solutions, or the long-term economic viability of solutions. They have to depend on others. Well, who are the others that are advising them? We think that many of them are well-intentioned, but they're human beings, they have biases. One bias is corporate vested interest. If I invest many millions of dollars in a climate solution, you better believe I'm going to promote that solution. Another bias is career vested interest. If I devote my career to development of a climate solution, you better believe I'm going to promote that solution. Another bias is public passion, primarily associated with advocating for solutions. If I devote my life to promoting a course of action to resolve global warming and mitigating climate change, you better believe I'll promote that solution. On their own, each of these biases are understandable. On their own, they're admirable as they work to moving climate solutions forward. The question has to be asked, though, will business as usual miraculously produce the optimal set of climate solutions with all the necessary infrastructure to resolve global warming and mitigate climate change for the next generation, for the generation after that, the generation after that? Will business as usual guide us to best resolve global warming for my grandchildren's grandchildren? I don't think so. And there's one more bias, political bias. Giving our elected officials credit for wanting to resolve global warming, which might not always be the case, they have to be reelected to continue to work on resolving global warming. And it's a pretty frequent cycle. Therefore, they have to listen to their constituents. Focusing just on policy decisions on climate solutions, who are their constituents? They are those with corporate vested interest, career vested interest, and public passions. So how do we get out of the mess we're in? We're depending on business as usual, the marketplace. We're not going to change the marketplace. And we have a lot of people working on this, a lot of sincere people, but they have biases which are very understandable. Well, the way we get out of this mess is we use a method that's going to mitigate those biases and maximize international collaboration in doing so. That's our proposal. So, Carl, you asked me about our army that we're putting together. Well, we haven't put it together yet. We are at the present time. We're five retired people. One of the five is still working. He's in his mid-60s. We're hopeful that we can somehow reach younger generations that will join us, that will see the merits of our proposal. But that international army, we're talking about 2,800 full-time and 22,000 part-time engineers, economists, social experts, policy experts, subject matter experts of all type, working for 3 years, and all being paid the equivalent of the average salary that a chemical engineer with 20 years of experience would be paid. My co-founder, Dr. Dick Hutchinson, who I'll describe his experience more as during this podcast. He has worked out all of the budget for this. So we're talking a lot of people because we're talking about the entire planet, and we want all countries involved. Now, GSOP is Global Solutions and Outreach Programs. 2 parts to it. The Global Solutions Program, which is the analyses of all the solutions on our. Imagine your coffee table with 150 or more puzzle pieces. How do you put those puzzle pieces together best for your country or for your region? 150 climate solutions. It's going to be different from one country to another, from one region to another. Now, maybe business as usual in the marketplace with all the biased interest advising capital investment people and policymakers. Maybe that'll work. Maybe. That's what we're doing now. We're not making much progress. But we propose something different, and the Global Solutions and Outreach Programs will have 2 parts: the Global Solutions Program, and Dr. Hutchinson, who I'll get into a little more, his expertise, will mentor that, and I'm going to mentor the outreach program, and there'll be linkages between the two. Dr. Hutchinson and I have committed to doing this for however long it takes at no compensation. This is important to us. We're not going to take any pay for this. But our 3 projects, project number 1, and is going to identify, evaluate, and integrate all available options to halt CO2 release and come up with plans for action plans. They may be doable. We whatever it would take to have the goal of having zero net CO2 release by 2050. Personally, I'm not sure that that's even possible. Another set of action plans by 2075 and another by 2100. Project 2 is going to look at the available options to adjust the Earth's energy balance to halt further warming. As your audience probably knows, there's inertia built into our planet. If we stopped emissions right away, the planet would continue to warm for many decades. There are various problems that Project 2 will address. That's just one of them, how to stabilize the Earth's energy balance and to halt further warming, and to deal with other things like ocean acidification and methane release. And then Project 3 is going to look at the technologies that may be puzzle pieces on our coffee table that are not proven. Okay, I have several colleagues, mostly retired, that have a lot of experience in industry and including nuclear industry, and one of them convinced me at one point that we need to put our money into the most viable technologies that have the potential to do so. He worked at a national lab for many years. He's retired now, and he said, "Well, the government will fund just about give money to almost every potential solution to solve a problem, when really they ought to be funding the 2 or 3 that have the most merit." So anyway, our Project 3 is going to focus on that. So let me just talk a little bit about IPCC and the working group 3. Working group 3 corresponds close to what we're proposing. Working group 3 has a focus in the IPCC of technically evaluating climate solutions. In November 2023, they produced the IPCC sixth assessment report. I think it goes by AR6. And well, let's see, no, I guess it was actually produced in March of 2023. That's right. The World Resources Institute did a report in November of 2023 about it. And they commented on the IPCC report that it's 2,000 to 3,000 pages long, a bit too long for most people to digest. So they prepare a summary for policymakers, which runs 30 to 50 pages. There isn't any plan in there that any country or region can actually use to figure out what combinations of solutions, climate solutions, that are best for their country or region. Many scenarios, but it takes then someone to dig deep into the various scenarios to figure out what solutions ought to be used within a country or region. Our proposal is that humanity should actually produce an action plan, let's say the 2075 action plan for Brazil, or the 2070 and the 2075 action plan, or 2100. We're going to produce 2050, 2075, 2100 action plans for Australia, for the region of South America or Europe, actual action plans. And as guides to policymakers and people with large amounts of capital. So that is our proposal. Now you say, all those biases, aren't they going to affect all the work you're doing? That's a valid question. This is where Dr. Hutchinson's experience comes in. So Dr. Hutchinson is another chemical engineer. He has a doctorate in chemical engineering. He spent his career at the Aberdeen Proving Ground, where the U.S. Army does a lot of R&D work, testing, and he was Dr. Hutchinson was involved in anything to do with chemicals. Now, some of your audience may be old enough to remember what happened in the 1980s in the Middle East, particularly with Iraq. Iraq was in a war with Iran in the 1980s. Saddam Hussein used chemical weapons in that war. And then later in the 1980s, he used chemical weapons on the Kurds in his own country. As a result of the use of these chemical weapons, a Geneva Convention was called in 1990 to figure out the best way to minimize dangers associated with using chemical weapons. That convention went for 3 years, and many countries were involved, including the United States. Dr. Hutchinson, he was probably in the last decade or so of his career. He was he was almost 50 at the time, I guess. Yeah, almost 50. He was asked to lead a U.S. Army project to figure out what the United States ought to do. And so he organized a project, and it involved 270 professionals from the Department of Energy and 7 national laboratories. So he led that project from 1990 to 1993, and he figured, well, we got all these laboratories, we got different categories of chemicals. In fact, some of them, who knows, may have had something to do with, potentially potential warfare considerations. I don't know the details of any of this. What he, the details of his work. A lot of it's still classified. So he and his colleagues in leadership of this project decided, well, we should put several teams together. They'll look at different aspects, and then he had a team that would oversee all the work of these different groups. And so they did that. There were issues that overlapped the different teams. I call those intersecting issues. And then and so they had to be resolved if there were any recommendations from one team to another that seemed to be conflicting. That method of analyses, he and 2 colleagues decided in 2002 to write a paper, and decided that this would be a good method to solve complex problems, and they called it the wicked problem approach. So they wrote that paper in 2002. Then he retired about that time, and he retired to a spot in Maine. My wife and I visited him and his wife here a few years ago, and small town, and he thought, well, I'm going to try this out on our small town of about 1,500 people. They had some municipality issues, so he convinced 20 people there to get together with him, and he used the same method to resolve some of their issues. After that successful project, he thought this wicked problem approach would probably be useful in resolving global warming. So he wrote a book that came out in 2019. And it was in that book that he laid out his proposal, which I explained to you today. And so using the wicked problem approach, which is assigning many teams to focused topics and having integration teams manage any intersecting issues that cross topics. That is the essence of the wicked problem approach, and that is our proposal. Now, perhaps, let me see if I have anything else to say about that.
I'm looking for the exact book, and I'm running into a couple different ones, but this is pretty interesting. We should make sure people can find this online. What's the title and author? It's not Hutchinson, is it?
Yes, Richard W. Hutchinson. And gosh, I have the let's see if I can just I'm able to share, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, put it on the screen. Put it on the screen.
Okay, let me see here. Well, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share. Well, I thought there. Now this is part one of a paper that Dr. Hutchinson and I produced in. Well, it came out in March 19, and I'm just going to scroll down. I should have had his book right here available to tell you, but it's in here. Let's see, there's his 2002 paper. Oh, here it is, number 6. People's Assessment of Global Warming. So that is the reference. I could probably you can get it on Amazon, and so I'd encourage people to take a look at that book.
There it is. It is People's Assessment of Global Warming plus Adaptations for Advancement and Survival. Dick Hutchinson, Durrell Smith Jr.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. So our proposal has not changed much from him putting that book together. Now, I didn't meet him until 2019, and gosh, I gave you a long spiel about Dick. I should tell you the reason that he and I got together. In 2019, when he published this book, he sent a letter to all of the chemical engineering departments at universities in the United States, which is about 160, explaining his proposal and asking for their support. And at North Carolina State University, the chair of the department told his staff about this, and one of his staff knew me because earlier in 2019 I with some colleagues, I launched a community within the American Institute of Chemical Engineers called the Climate Solutions Community. And so this faculty member, Phil Westmoreland, knew about that. And so he reached out to me. He says, Tom, why don't you see what this fellow up in Maine is doing? So that's how Dick and I first got acquainted. And with my work in the AICHE, we decided that Dick should be the expert on mentoring the analyses of potential climate solutions, which is, we call that the Global Solutions Program, and I should mentor the work on outreach. So that's how we got started. Now, perhaps I should show you a little bit more in the paper here. I'll just give you a little tour through the paper. If there's any questions coming in, stop me at any time. This literature review section of the paper goes into what people have thought about over the years since 1973 on wicked problems. Some problems are just so difficult to handle that you can't really solve them. All you can do is come up with the best way forward, and so that's what a wicked problem is. It cannot really be solved, but you can make your best attempt at solving it. Then in 2012, this person Levin and his colleagues identified climate change as a super wicked problem. And look at they had added 4 characteristics to super wicked problems. Time is running out. That's true. Time is running out to solve global warming. Those who cause the problem also seek to provide its solution. Now, those who cause the problem. Now, I worked in oil and gas my whole career. I'm a chemical engineer. I worked in oil refining and petrochemicals. And in fact, some people say, what's this guy in Houston, Texas? You can't depend on somebody from Houston, Texas to solve global warming. Well, I'm going to diverge a little bit here. I may use up all the time just telling stories, but I really was not concerned about global warming one bit up through about 66 years of age. Then in December of 2016, I happened to see a discussion start on the AICHE discussion webpage. A professor out east somewhere was thinking about developing a course to teach his chemical engineering students on global warming. So he just was asking for advice. This was my first time in actually thinking about global warming. And I've been accused by people, younger people, saying, Tom, you never gave a thought to global warming until you were 66. Well, that's true. That's got to be honest. Anyway, I read the comments. They were from people who actually thought that global warming was a problem. There were people who thought, no, there's not a problem. There's nothing going on here. But what struck me was that it was people who obviously didn't know each other. I could tell just by reading the comments. There were 50-something thousand members of the AICHE, but sometimes they get very bitter towards each other. And I got to the point where I thought, well, I'm going to if we just assumed there might be a problem, let's just work together. And what harm could that bring? So I put a post up and I said as much, why don't we work together on this? Well, that post was taken down a few hours later, which got me pretty upset. And I was the next day I was on my way uh, to San Antonio for a chemical engineering conference, and I thought, well, I'm going to take a survey. I'm old enough where I don't ask permission for things, so I came up with a survey, 2-question survey. The first question was, do you think global warming is happening? And the second question, do you think it's being caused by human activity? Well, at the time, I was a director of a division, process safety division of the institute. So I had to get there early. So I got there and I had my little survey, and anybody that came around, I asked them. And after a day and a half, I had 33 people who answered my survey, and I was amazed that 30, all but one said it's happening. Global warming is happening, and 70% said it's due to human activity. So now these are chemical engineers who mainly work in oil and gas and chemical manufacturing. Well, that was in early 2017. And then I got a call from somebody from the Institute a day or so later, and I thought, my gosh, I got in trouble because I did this darn survey. Well, they invited me to be on a task force, climate change task force. And then by the time I had worked on that task force, I knew we had a problem. Later that year, I was nominated to run for chair of the South Texas section, and I basically said, if don't vote for me unless you want something done on resolving global warming. I figured I'd never get elected. And I got elected, and I got elected by about 70%. So even though I'm in Houston, the moral of the story is a lot of people who work in industries that have caused the problem are concerned about global warming. So what else can I tell you about this paper? It's a super wicked problem. Okay, so we do have these other organizations that are trying to do something about it. And I review 4 of them in the paper, the annual COP meetings, Project Drawdown, Deep Decarbonization Pathways projects, and the International Energy Agency came out with a roadmap in 2050. It was in 2021, I believe. So I go in detail on why these are not making any progress, and why they're not going to. And the reason they're not going to is because of the reasons I've told you. We have so much bias that we cannot tear ourselves away from the influences of biases. Now, in the part 1 of the paper, I go into intersecting issues framed by planetary limits. So I never heard of Eco-Modernist Society before, and I was quite pleased that the organization does support nuclear energy, because I believe that we're not going to resolve global warming unless we have a vast increase in nuclear energy. But there are mineral limits that have to be considered in any analyses. I look at the minerals that are now being used. I wrote this part of the paper. There's a lot of minerals that are now needed. Okay, are they going to? Does the planet have enough of them to go out 200 years? I think we have to go out at least 200 years. I don't give nuclear a pass. Now, there's this reference here cites that Uranium, we have about 90 years of reserves if it's based on 3 times the current spot price. Okay, I'm not a nuclear energy expert, but I do have colleagues who are experts in advanced nuclear and where you reprocess spent fuel and so on, and so that nuclear, if we don't use the advanced nuclear, we're limited also. We're not going to be able to go out 200 years. Maybe some of you may have heard of a limit on capital. In 2023, I over Zoom, I saw this presentation by a professor at Georgetown University. He's a finance guy, and this is the first time I ever heard this, that there's going to come a time when we're going to have a financial tipping point beyond which there will not be enough capital to resolve global warming. And based on the projected increase in temperatures, this could happen within 20 or 30 years. Now that's real scary. I was actually invited to join a basic chemicals technical working group for the Climate Bonds Initiative in early 2021 that is attempting to develop criteria for projects to be awarded bonds based on how effective the project is in reducing emissions. Let's see, so far they have issued $3.5 trillion US in green bonds. Now, they are not working from any sort of a quote unquote plan, such as Dr. Hansen suggested and such as we propose. I think that your organization, as I understand it, is concerned, maybe not, I don't know, about the food sources. A little story, I grew up on a farm in Arkansas. Well, we're getting about 15 minutes from close here. I may need to stop talking so I can answer some questions. But these are limits that we have to consider. And of course, time limit, we're running into several tipping points. If we continue to just assume that business as usual is going to solve the problem, we're going to have to face reality at some point. We have to take a more regimented approach to it. Maybe I should stop there, Carl, and see if you have any questions. Anybody has any questions?
Oh boy, because there is a lot here, and so that if I'm going to summarize, it is we need to actually work for solutions, and the IPCC hasn't even recommended strategies to solve climate change since 2018 with the special report on 1.5. That was the last time we got a glimpse of the strategies that were possible. And so, of course, I love to talk about that because every single one of those successful strategies included a massive increase in nuclear energy. And I think that's a big missing part of the puzzle. And I really appreciate that your wicked problem approach is open to all solutions. What I want to know is in those alternative pathways, alternative strategies that you went over, drawdown, the different I guess they're different NGO proposals. What kind of bias did you suspect in those proposals?
Well, okay. So, nuclear energy is limited in all of them, really. I didn't see any scenarios in which nuclear was very dominant. And I'd have to go back and look at them again, but it seems like 20% contribution, maybe a little bit more, is sort of maximum. Now, that may be realistic because it takes a lot of capital. And in fact, if we don't go in with reprocessing, to achieve more than that may be impossible. And a lot of people don't like reprocessing because of proliferation concerns. So I don't know exactly the considerations in all of those studies, but yeah, nuclear is limited quite a bit. There's a lot of hope that renewables are going to save the day. Now, I think that I saw somewhere in maybe some of our correspondence an interest in geothermal.
Yeah. Is geothermal sort of a necessary part of that solution?
Well, it's interesting that I'm not an expert, but I can tell you that I was invited to a geothermal conference over Zoom in 2021, maybe late 2020, and the conference looked at a lot of technical challenges associated with geothermal, and there are technical challenges, but there was hope at that time that they could be overcome. And of course, the economic viability of doing something with geothermal is always there. It's with any solution, the economic viability is there. Concerns are there. One advantage of geothermal is that a big technical requirement is drilling. And in the oil and gas, we have a lot of experts in drilling. And so that's a big plus in my mind. Now, I don't think that geothermal is given a lot of is in favor in a lot of these four global studies that I reviewed. I didn't see a lot of support for it, although it is mentioned. But when you have high temperature strata just below our feet, you know, it's got to be a serious consideration. As I say, about 5 years ago, a conference that I attended, they outlined a lot of challenges, but we have people expert in drilling. So
yeah, and you know, I saw green bonds list mentioned, and I knew
yes.
that as late as 2018, 2019, nuclear was excluded from different green bond programs like HSBC, and we're only recently starting to qualify nuclear in like IMF and the European investments, the European EU investments. Only very recently are we starting to qualify nuclear for those investments. So it is disappointing that we've spent so much time and money on everything else. We've excluded nuclear, and we're going to do it. But as you say, 20%, 20 to 30% in my mind may be realistic in order to move as quickly as possible with all possible solutions. So not terribly. I wouldn't disagree with you. Yeah.
Well, one of my concerns with nuclear is that both China and Russia are taking the bull by the horns and moving forward with advanced nuclear, and so that's concerning. We don't want to get too far behind.
Yeah. and that goes to like American exceptionalism. Like America is a great force for, I guess, freedom of capital in the world, and with Russia and China, you have different constraints on capital, whether it be corruption or fealty to the state, and it kind of puts the thumb on the scale in favor of a few individuals, whereas you might not like the idea of capital controlling our world, but it is at least free in some sense. So the difference that I think we're going to see with that is that, of course, Russia brings all of the ownership of the fuel process into their country, and so if you have a Russian plant, they are the ones reprocessing. And I'm not sure how the Chinese franchise is it that China is in all these countries operating it themselves?
Well, now this is an area I don't know
Yeah.
enough about.
Okay. I wanted to
But,
riff on like your concerns that
yeah.
these are different operational models. Whereas I think the U.S. and the European Union, the IAEA approach, probably maybe not IAEA, but the Western approach would be to build up local expertise and cooperate with those nations to produce the engineering capacity to build up their reactors. So instead of being client states, they would be allied states, and I think that's definitely more encouraging.
well, you're introducing part of the complexity of this wicked problem.
Yeah.
When they China and Russia are taking the lead on these advanced nuclear technologies, and yes, we may have if we're going to resolve our global warming problem, the United States and other Western countries are going to have to collaborate with them in some fashion. I don't know how.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how to get involved in your project, and what people can do to connect with you on this?
Well, so we are at a point. We are a young organization being led by old people. I'm 74 and I'm middle aged in the core group of five leading our initiative. So we really need younger people to help us out. We also need a little bit of money to help us just meet the operating expenses of our nonprofit. Last year we did a fundraiser and we raised enough to meet our operating cost, which is about $10,000. Is it all right if I were to put up
Yeah, go ahead.
a QR code? If I can get it here. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. I'm in a bad habit of sharing my whole screen. I'm not sure what's going to show up. Oh, there's that papers. That wasn't too bad. So this is a QR code. Donations of any amount will help us. And what you'll see is you'll see donations starting at $1,000 going down to 1,500, 250, and then other amounts. Any donation will help us. So so you take a picture of that, and then anyone who wants to reach out to me, I don't know if I don't have my I don't have it where I can show it to you, but my email address is very easy to remember. Maybe I could just put it in chat here.
Yeah.
That'd probably be the best thing. It's my name, tom@tomrehm.com. That's it. So I'd be happy to correspond with anyone who thinks that our proposal makes sense. Does anybody have a question? Did anybody have a question that would counter that view that our proposal makes sense? Do they think that we're kind of a crazy bunch of old people here?
Well, I mean, probably one of the more interesting ideas is that, well, the formulation around the wicked problem approach, why couldn't that be applied to a machine learning system? And because you're talking about using different stakeholders or different engineering groups and finding these interdisciplinary links, but it is essentially it is an algorithm. Is that right?
Well, I'll tell you, a couple of us, well, maybe most of us in our small group of 5, we think that we ought to really use AI to we shouldn't do this without the capabilities of AI,
Mm-hmm.
and so that is at least in my mind, we have to use AI in order to because there's so much content out there that we can't spin our wheels just getting up to speed.
How do you envision this being these reforms taking place? Is with the IPCC, it would be like the IPCC would just change their MO?
So the results of the action plans that we will develop will inform people. We do not want to replace the IPCC with our proposal. We don't want to replace anybody. Project Drawdown is wonderful in that they have done a lot of work in assembling a vast library of solutions. We think that we just need to produce these action plans to inform everyone who is on the stage. We're not on the stage yet. We're barely in the theater, but there are people on the stage, and we think they need to be better informed. Now, once we get closer to the stage, maybe we and they might think that together we could form a coalition of some sort. But we think that humanity needs these action plans to be better informed, because we're not solving the problem now. That's the bottom line.
Well, thanks everyone for your contributions, for listening and watching us with Dr. Tom Rehm. This has been the Eco-Modernist Society of North America's Eco-Modernist Channel Live. You can find us on YouTube, Eco-Modernist Channel, or at Eco-Modernist1. You can find us on Facebook at the Eco-Modernist Society of North America. You can find us on the web at ESNA.earth, that's ESNA.earth. And I rebroadcast this to many of my personal channels, Carl Alex Pauls on Twitter, on x.com, soyaddle.tv or twitch.tv/soyaddle, and on my own LinkedIn at Carl Pauls. And remember, emissions first, peace and justice will follow.
I want to speak to you about a new organization called the Eco-Modernist Society of North America. I'm here because we are in the midst of a potentially monumental ecological crisis. It is only through a new environmentalism 2.0 that progress can be made. We believe that our only hope for human advancement and even human survival is through the exponential advance of science in the service of humanity. Eco-modernism is a new environmental paradigm which looks to reverse the fear of nuclear power and scientific progress in general. Ecology-based modernism is the most direct way to define it. Eco-modernism as a philosophy is described in the Eco-Modernist Manifesto. We believe humanity should not be rejecting technological progress, but rather separate our impacts from nature through the responsible use of technology and urbanization. Urbanization is an unstoppable worldwide trend and the best solution to many environmental problems. It offers sustainable development for the human population and is a historic antidote to both deforestation and species extinction as humans move away from using wildlife as their protein source. Vertical, urban, high-rise architecture minimizes the use of land, resources, and energy, enabling walkable cities that facilitates the more efficient use of mass public transit as well. It must be emphasized that our support for technological solutions is definitely not about defending industrial polluters, nor does our defense of technology imply that we just need to sit back and let things take care of themselves. To the contrary, we believe that humanity is at a crossroads that severely threatens our future on this planet. I hope by now you understand the worthiness of our cause. Eco-modernism is really only a philosophy at this time. I want to talk to you about the necessity of turning it into a movement, which will be part of the larger environmentalist movement. For it is only through our presence and participation that there can be any hope of moving environmentalism in the right direction. Our aim is not to divide the environmental movement, but rather to multiply its numbers with the incorporation of many scientific and educational communities that is working to both build chapters of eco-modernist societies and support our growth worldwide.